final score, Wrexham 4, Boreham 2. Wow, epic game that was. A remarkable win. Game of the season so far, I would argue. But goodness me, it gave promise of equal fun to come. Wrexham with a blow before the match. Jordan Davis failed to be fit in time, and so without he or Tom O'Connor, Wrexham played Liam McAlinden in centre midfield, and you wondered whether the loss of Davis's passing range might be an issue. However, well, it didn't turn out to be in the end, but Boreham Wood were interesting. I mean, it comes fresh off their defeat at Everton. Played a bit of football in the FA Trophy match at the racecourse, but it didn't work. And they seem to have decided they were going to revert back to classic Boreham Wood. This was a proper Route 1 Boreham Wood performance. They were very physical, very aggressive, pinging it into areas rather than passing the ball. And as always happens when you get a team like that against a team that can play, you get periods of the game where one side imposes itself on the other, and then vice versa. And that was exactly how this went. Boreham Wood first 10 minutes or so started really well, and Wrexham couldn't get a grip on the ball. Boreham Wood knocking long balls down the channels. They, particularly on the right, whether they're trying to target Max Cleworth or not, I don't know, or whether it was just the way things turned out, because when they play like that, the ball will get stuck in that sort of quarter of the pitch for quite a long time. They'll commit players up the pitch, then they'll fight for all the second balls and just put it straight back in there, and it becomes very, very difficult to defend against. And as a result, first 10 minutes, Wrexham struggled to get any sort of foothold, though we did have a couple of sharp-looking breaks. Didn't lead to anything. They just showed what we could achieve. The main one of those came when Palmer picked up a nice square ball after a run by McFadden down the left-hand side and took on his man, drove in a shot, really good block, put the ball into the side netting for a corner. However, around the hour mark, Wrexham started to get their rhythm going, started to get the ball down, forced Boreham Wood back, and now Wrexham were in the ascendant, establishing their style of play onto Boreham Wood. And it was a period which would end with the opening goal. Firstly, Palmer, again, doing really well, holding the ball up, finding Mullen on the right corner of the box. He cut onto his left foot and drilled a fantastic curling shot, aiming for the bottom far corner, which was superbly tipped away at full stretch by Ashby Hammond for a corner. That corner was swung in and cleared as far as James Jones, who smashed in a shot from the edge of the area, which took a deflection and went for another corner, and from that one came the goal. Luke Young with a brilliant delivery. His delivery all night was superb, and Ollie Palmer running in from the penalty spot, meeting it with a perfect glancing header on the near post, 1-0 to Wrexham. However, Boreham Wood, after another 5 minutes of Wrexham looking like they could kill the game off, started to have a bit more control, and they started to impose their style on Wrexham. Although it was Wrexham who made the next chance, a terrific pass from deep by Luke Young, picking up Mullen in the left channel. He cut inside and tried to curl the ball in with his right foot, but got too much on it and hit it too straight. However, like I said, Boreham Wood then started forcing Wrexham back, started to get their bodies out the pitch, and the last 10 minutes of the half were played on Boreham Wood's terms, and they got the equaliser. An avoidable equaliser, it's got to be said. Monday, he was their best player by far on the left-hand side, getting forwards into a good crossing position. Hall Johnson got a block on the first cross, did well. But then when it came back to Monday and he shaped to cross, Hall Johnson turned his back and jumped. It wasn't good. And that allowed Monday to just run straight past him, whip a dangerous ball into the 6-yard box, where ex-Wrexham striker Scott Bowden did really well to stoop ahead of Tozer and just deflect it past him with his head and across Leighton and into the goal. Bowden, in the build-up, because like I said, the way Boreham would play, they're focusing the ball on certain areas of the pitch, and the build-up was all about crawling down that left flank. In the build-up, there were a few times when I think the Macron stand took the opportunity to have a bit of a go at Bowden and his teammates, and Bowden didn't like it and set off on a really ill-advised celebration, running at the fans very, very aggressively. You can see it on the video when the highlights come out tonight, very shouting and screaming at the crowd, and he got a yellow card for his troubles, and he would regret it even more later on, but we'll get to that in a bit. So at half-time, you thought, OK, it's 1-1. And frankly, Boreham are having some good spells here. Whoever can impose themselves will come out on top. In the first 5 or so minutes of the half, it was Boreham who had Wrexham penned in. They had one chance when a ball was knocked over the top, an awkward one for Hayden, who miscontrolled it, and Bowden from the left-hand side tried to curl it round Lainton, who got across quickly and well to his left to catch it pretty comfortably. However, then Wrexham took control and Boreham never got it back. The rest of the game was played on Wrexham's terms and, well, it could have been more than 4, quite frankly. It was so impressive. Firstly, a scramble in the penalty area. Mullen may have been in with a shout of getting a penalty as a wild swipe came in at him. It certainly affected his footwork, but he stayed on his feet, worked it wide, and Palmer just smashed it across the face of goal. Unluckily for Wrexham, nobody was in the 6-yard box to tap it into the empty net. McFadden was the first player forward, 6 yards out, and he couldn't get there in time. But Wrexham were turning the screw. Then it was a corner swung into the box. Mullen beating his man and driving the ball in from a tight angle, well saved by Ashby Hammond, before a long throw in by Tozer, which went above Hayden, who'd lost his man at the far post and again fell to Mullen, and Mullen took a touch and lashed a shot into the side netting. Now then, 59th minute came possibly a key turning point, although Wrexham were on top by this point. One of the 3 centre-backs of Boreham Wood, Connor Stevens, looked like he tweaked his hamstring and had one long spell of treatment. Then he went down and had to be replaced. On came James Comley. Now, he's a player who I like a lot. I've always done well against us playing for Maidenhead. He's a centre mid. He's a sort of deep-lying playmaker. Trouble for Boreham Wood was they had no centre-backs on the bench, and when you looked across their team, no obvious players who would drop back into that position. So Comley was put in as left-sided centre-back and had an absolute nightmare. And Wrexham capitalised upon him. His first touch, the ball took a funny bounce and he missed the ball completely and ended up on his backside. And I think Wrexham smelt blood. Hall Johnson bursting down that side of the pitch on the hour, whipping in a great cross to the far post. Will Evans, the right side of centre-back, got himself into a terrible knot, trying to mark Mullen. He let him get goal side. He tried to grab hold of Mullen's shirt and was struggling to. He was all over the place. His body shape was horrible. And then Hall Johnson ripped this tantalising cross in across him. His arms were up and he handled it. Referee amazingly gave a corner. His arms were up around shoulder height and he got a good contact on it with his arm, and yet amazingly the referee chose to say it was accidental. However, it wasn't long before it was punished, because the corner came in, went out for a throw. Tozer did brilliantly. Never seen a quick long throw before, but he was there. Where the hell he came from, I don't know. Suddenly hurling the ball in from by the corner flag. The defence hadn't set themselves, and Hayden got up and met it at the far post with a fabulous glancing header into the top corner to make it 2-1. And this was where the game went really nuts. 3 goals in 4 minutes and 7 seconds, because straight from the kickoff, I mean, this was classic Route 1 football. Boreham Wood kicked off, 3 touches, and they'd scored. They kicked off by knocking it long over the top, and, beg your pardon, we scored next, didn't we? Beg your pardon? Okay, ignore that bit. Oh, it's his house. Wrexham then pushed on and looked like we were going to overwhelm them. Ball coming out to James Jones, who smashed a great shot from 20 yards into the side of the left post. Again, Ashby Hammond with a brilliant save, but it was only a temporary reprieve, because within a minute, Wrexham again coming forwards. A great piece of play by Palmer to hold it up. He wanted to play Mullen in, but he thought he was just offside, so held off on the edge of the area. The ball was taken away from Palmer, but Palmer persisted and managed to win it back one-on-one with the keeper. Ashby Hammond came out really quickly and closed it down, blocked a shot with his body. It looped up to the edge of the box. There were defenders in the edge of the 6-yard box blocking the view of goal, but still James Jones got there and brilliantly improvised a volley, lifting it over his men and into the net. An excellent finish. I didn't realise it was so good the first time I saw it. Looking at the replay, really good finish. And Wrexham 3-1 up, and it looked like we battered them. Fair play, though, like I said, long ball teams can come back in an instant, and they did. And this is where 3 touches after Jones had scored, it was 3-2 again. It was from the kick-off was dropped behind Hayden, who could only mishead it behind for a corner. It looked like a mistake. To be fair, Boreham would work on putting the ball into difficult areas to defend, and I think, to be fair, he didn't know if somebody was outside him and he had to try and get his head on it. And then from the corner, swept in by Rees to the near post. Excellent glancing header by Marsh running across the near post, and it was 3-2. But Wrexham were not relent. And soon afterwards, a goal kick. What an assist by Lainton. Edison who? Leighton from a goal kick just drilled it over the top perfectly to put Mullen through on goal. Ashby Hammond came out quickly and Mullen instinctively, as the ball lifted, rose in front of him, hooked the ball beyond the keeper and inside the left post. A fine goal, and Wrexham had some breathing space, and deservedly so. Bowden was substituted off soon afterwards, and quite frankly, well, the reaction. I mean, Bowden, I'm afraid, brought it on himself with the way he had to go at the crowd. I've never heard a reaction like this to a player getting subbed before. They weren't booing him, they were just laughing. This was such a one-sided game. Boreham were really starting to melt down at this point, and the players just laughing at him. In fact, the crowd, rather. Boreham would try to rouse themselves. Mondi dinked a cute little cross in towards the penalty spot, and the substitute Horsey headed it comfortably over. And then Wrexham went close. Mullen with a free kick on the edge of the area. The two-man wall with another man standing a yard off it, and he ripped it through the gap, but the keeper was able to get down and save it. 7 added minutes, and it was beautiful because there was barely any football in it. Wrexham closed the game down superbly. String of corners, string of throw-ins, keeping the ball in the corners. Boreham had no chance to get anywhere. They did have one opportunity where the ball was played out to the flank. Lewis drove in a shot which was blocked, came out to Evans, who stood her up into the box, and Reese had a flick header which went straight at Leighton from around the penalty spot. And that was that. A superb crowd, a superb atmosphere, a superb performance. We had such a job picking a man of the match because so many terrific performances out there. In the end, we went for Luke Young. James Jones was close. The whole midfield, McAlinden worked his socks off. Hall Johnson had some errors on the right, but did okay. McFadden was excellent on the left. The 3 centre-backs superb. Could you try and target Cloworth? No, it's been tried before. Doesn't seem to work. The lad's doing brilliantly. And the 2 strikers up front, terrifically lively. A brilliant performance, a message to the rest of the division, and a win that just knocks Boreham Wood back as their season just starts to look like it may be crumbling a little bit. A fantastic night at the racecourse. If you weren't there, I'm sorry. With the final score of Wrexham 4, Boreham Wood 2, I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC.